Hi, welcome to our channel Management Accounting Made Easy. This is part 3 of relevant costing. Here we are going to see the relevant cost of labor. Here we are going to see the different situations of labor availability and how to calculate the relevant cost of labor. So I have created a table and we are going to see 3 different situations. So on the left hand side, it says the availability of labor, and on the right hand side of the chart, it says how to calculate the relevant cost. So we'll see the first situation. Here, the company has utilized the labor hours fully. That means that there is no spare capacity. So if the company has to undertake a new contract or new project, then they have to hire new staff. So the relevant cost of labor will be the required labor hours times by the market rate per hour, because they have to hire the labor from the market. So they got to pay at the market rate. So this is our first situation. That means there is no spare capacity. Now, we look at the second situation. The company has a spare capacity, but that capacity is not enough for a new contract. For example, 300 hours is required for a new contract, but only 100 hours of spare capacity available. Okay, so in this case, there is no relevant cost for the 100 hours spare capacity, because this 100 spare capacity have to be paid anyway. Whether used in this project or no, the company has to pay their employees. Therefore, the relevant cost of labor for the 100 hours of spare capacity will be nil. But the relevant cost in this contract for the extra 200 hours, the company has to pay at market rate. So 200 hours times the market rate is going to be the relevant cost. So whenever there is a spare capacity, the relevant cost for that spare capacity will be always nil. Now, we'll look at the third possibility. There is a severe shortage of labor. That means the company can't hire any more labor. So that means what? The company has to pinch some labor hours from its usual production. So the relevant cost is going to be the number of hours times market rate per hour plus the opportunity cost of labor. Say the company has pinched 100 hours from its usual production, and the contribution foregone will be, say, for example, £5 per hour. So we need to add the opportunity cost of labor, which is £5 times 100, with the number of hours times the market rate. So I'll quickly summarize this. If there is a severe shortage of labor, the relevant cost of labor is going to be number of hours times market rate per hour plus the opportunity cost of labor. So that means the opportunity cost of labor is the contribution foregone. So we have seen this one in theory. We will be doing quite a few examples in our next slide. So this is our example 1. We are going to see this example, that is labor with spare capacity. Cotton Buds Limited has obtained a new contract which requires 750 hours of labor. the company has 300 hours of spare capacity. So we know out of 750 hours, the company has 300 hours. So for the relevant cost of that 300 hours spare capacity is nil. Okay, so the balance 450 hours only the company has to take into account. There were two possibilities of obtaining the remaining 450 hours of labor. The company could either work overtime at 1.5 times of the normal rate of pay, and the normal rate of pay is given, or diverting the labor from its usual production line. Each box of cotton buds requires 2 hours of labor and earns a contribution of £10 per box. So here we have, to obtain that 450 hours, we have two options. Either the company can work overtime, or they can pinch the labor hours from its usual production. Okay, so first we'll see what is the relevant cost of labor. So we all know we need to calculate the relevant cost of 450 hours only. Okay, so the first possibility, overtime working. Okay, overtime working, 450 hours. Okay, the normal rate of pay is £8 per hour. But if you work overtime, if the employees work overtime, you got to pay time and a half. So that means 8 plus 4, £12 per hour. So 450 times 12, which is £5,400. This is our option 1. Now option 2, you can pinch the labor hours from your usual production. Okay, so £8, the usual labor cost, plus the contribution foregone, because if you pinch the labor from your usual production, you will be losing contribution. How much contribution you are going to lose? Because each box or each box of cotton buds requires 2 hours of labor and earns a contribution of £10 per box. Okay, so the contribution per labor hour is £5. £10 divided by 2. So your total cost is going to be £8. That's your usual rate of pay, plus the contribution foregone, which is £5. So the total is going to be £13. So 13 times 450 is going to be £5,850. So if you choose overtime working, the cost is going to be 5,400. And if you choose to pinch your labor hours from your usual production, it's going to cost you 5,850. As we all know, we must go for the cheapest possible option, in this case, the overtime, because we have seen in our previous part, if you overcharge a customer, you will lose that contract. So always consider the two options and go for the cheapest one. In this case, overtime working. So the relevant cost of labor is going to be £5,400. When we do relevant costing calculations, we need to decide which overhead cost is relevant. First, we'll see variable overhead. All the variable overhead costs are relevant. Now we look at the fixed overheads. Any specific fixed overhead, any attributable fixed overhead or stepped fixed overhead are relevant. But a portion fixed overhead or existing fixed overhead is not relevant. Any fixed overhead which is not affected by the decision is not relevant. We are going to look at another example on labor with spare capacity. So we look at the question. Stylish Tops Company has been offered a special contract which requires 175 hours of labor paid at £22 per hour. The company is working at full capacity. Also, there is a general shortage of labor in the market. So that means there is no spare capacity of labor, and also the company can't hire any extra labor from the market due to the shortage. The labor has to be taken from another European contract which currently uses 650 hours of labor and earning £13,000 worth of contribution. If the labor taken from the European contract, then the European contract has to be delayed, and Stylish Tops Company has to pay a penalty of £2,250. So this one, if they pinch the labor from the European contract, they wouldn't be able to finish it on time. So they have to pay a penalty of £2,250. So what is the relevant cost of labor for the special contract? So we look at the answer. So we need 175 hours of labor and it's being paid £22 per hour. So the usual cost is 175 times 22 plus the opportunity cost. In this case, the opportunity cost is the penalty, £2,250. So with the labor cost plus the penalty, £2,250, so the relevant cost of labor is going to be £6,100. So we'll see. Labor is in short supply. So there is an opportunity cost. In this case, the only opportunity cost is the penalty because the contribution from the European contract will still be earned but will be delayed. We're going to see another example, labor with training cost. So we look at this example. Soft Lens Limited manufactures and sells contact lenses. It has been offered a new contract starting next week, which requires 150 hours of skilled labor and 100 hours of unskilled labor. The skilled labor is currently working at full capacity, paid at £30 per hour, and earns a contribution of £7 per hour. Alternatively, the company can employ new workers at a training cost of £16 per hour for the first 15 hours of working. So this says for the skilled labor, they are in short supply, but they have two options. The first one, they can pinch the skilled labor from the usual production. So there will be an opportunity cost of £7. So the skilled labor, if they pinch it from the usual production, it's going to be 30 plus 7, £37 per hour. Or they have an alternative option, which is they can give training to the employees. So the training cost is going to be £16 per hour for the first 15 hours of working. Okay, so we have looked at the skilled labor. Now we look at the unskilled. The company has employed 7 unskilled workers paid at £12 per hour with a guaranteed minimum wage of £480 per week per employee. So if you look at the question, £480 per week and £12 per hour. So the guaranteed working hours is going to be 40 hours per week, because 480 divided by 12, 40 hours. So we'll continue. For the next couple of weeks, all the unskilled employees have allocated to a contract to earn £372 per week. So out of the 40 hours, they are going to work 372 divided by 12. So because they say £372 worth of work they are going to do, so 372 divided by 12, which is 31 hours. So the company is going to pay for 40 hours, whereas the employees are going to work for 31 hours. So there is a 9 hours worth of spare capacity, okay, per employee. But the new contract must be completed within the first week of the contract starting, and the overtime is paid at time and a half. Calculate both skilled and unskilled labor costs to be included in the new contract. So first we look at the skilled labor cost. So we look at the first option, which is including the opportunity cost, which is the lost contribution. So we require 150 hours, times it by £30 is the usual pay, plus the £7 is the lost contribution. So 150 hours times 37 is equal to £5,550. Now, if you look at the second option, train the employees. Okay, so on top of the usual pay, which is 150 hours times 30, plus they have to pay a training cost of £16 per hour for 15 hours. So 150 times 30, which is 4,500, plus 15 hours times £16 per hour, which is 240. So £4,500 plus the 240, the total cost is £4,740. As we know, we always have to go with the lowest cost. So for skilled labor, we are going to go with option 2, which is £4,740. Now we look at the unskilled labor cost. So as we have discussed, the total weekly hours per employee is 480 divided by 12, which is 40 hours per employee. So that 40 hours is paid whatever happens. Now they are working for only 31 hours because £372 divided by £12. So the remaining 9 hours per employee is the spare capacity. Therefore, the total spare capacity is 9 hours per employee, and there are 7 employees working, so it's 63 hours. So this 63 hours the company has. But the company requires 100 unskilled labor hours. So the remaining 37 hours, which is 100, take away the available 63 hours. So the remaining 37 hours must be paid at time and a half. Therefore, the unskilled labor cost is going to be 37 hours times time and a half, which is 12 plus 6, 18. So 666 pounds. We are going to see example number 4, relevant cost of labor, which is going to be our final example for the relevant cost of labor. Designer Jewellery Limited manufactures designer jewellery. The following is the cost card is prepared for a designer chain. So we'll see. The selling price is £285. Material cost £75. Labour cost £126. Variable overhead cost is £27. Fixed cost is £12. So the total cost is £240. And the profit per chain is £45. And the question will continue on the next. So example 4 continues. Each designer chain takes 3 hours of labor to make, and there is no spare capacity available for labor and machinery. The company is planning to make a new type of designer chain, but it would have to take labor and machinery from its usual production. So that means the company has to pinch from its usual production. So the question is, calculate the total relevant cost per hour of labor and variable overhead. So we'll look at the summary of the question. On the previous slide, it has been given selling price, material cost, labor cost, variable overhead, fixed overhead. And also we know each chain takes 3 hours of labor to make. So the contribution per chain, we need to calculate the contribution per chain because we are going to pinch the labor from our usual production. So the selling price is 285. Take away all the variable costs, which is material cost of 75 plus the labor cost of 126 plus the variable overhead cost of 27. So if you take away all the variable cost, so the contribution per chain is going to be £57 because selling price take away all the variable cost. So from this we can calculate the relevant cost of labor per hour because the question requires us to calculate the relevant cost of labor per hour. Now, so they're using 126 pounds worth of labor cost, and each chain requires 3 hours of labor. So the labor cost per hour is 126 pounds divided by 3, which is 42 pounds. And on top we need to add the contribution foregone, which is 57 pounds per chain, and each chain requires 3 hours to make. So 57 pounds divided by 3 hours is 19 pounds. So the total relevant cost of labor per hour is 61 pounds. Now the variable cost per hour, because each chain costs a variable cost of 27 pounds. So divided by 3 hours, so 9 pounds per hour, the variable cost. So the total relevant cost per hour of labor and variable overhead is 61 pounds plus the 9 pounds is 70 pounds. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. I'll see you with part 4 of relevant